All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us with Transnational Career Consultant. We're so glad to be able to offer you this webinar this afternoon and with Rachel Davis Sharf, I already messed it up, JD. Just a couple of reminders. We are asking that everyone please put your microphone or your audio on mute so that everyone can be able to hear. And for when it's question and answer time, it helps to facilitate a little bit better. We do know that questions may be submitted via the chat option on the Zoom link, or you can wait until the end of the webinar to ask questions. Our host has graciously said that she's available to answer questions. So whatever questions that you may have, you can submit it at the end of the webinar. And also questions will be received by the order, will be answered by the order that they are received. On your chat option, you should see on the side, there is a couple of different ways to reach out to us. I've provided a couple of different options. We do have our website, which is www.transnationalcareer.com. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions, additional questions about the webinar today or any other questions that you may have. We also have a contact for email. That is contact@transnationalcareers.com. And also we can be reached by telephone. Our telephone number is 612-450-4186. So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker for today. Our speaker is Rachel Davis Sharf. She's a JD. She's an immigration attorney with Davis and Goldfarb. She manages the firm's employment-based permanent residence department, and she handles a wide variety of immigration cases, including employment-based, extraordinary ability petitions, agricultural visas, removal, defense, and litigation, asylum, and other matters. Previously, Rachel was a civil litigator with a major national law firm. She represented clients in complex business and commercial cases in federal and state courts throughout the country. And she also interned with the United States Immigration Court in Minnesota. So please help us give a round of applause to Rachel. Rachel, I hand it over to you. Thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thanks, Doris, and thanks for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions either during my presentation or at the end. And I figured just to get an idea, do people have kind of a basic understanding of the O1 visa, or are we kind of starting from, the very basics?
We're starting from the very, very basics.
Okay.
So if you could just give us a background on what it's all about, and then we'll go on from there.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start, like I said, or like Doris just said, I am an attorney at Davis and Goldfarb. We're a Minneapolis-based immigration firm. We handle basically almost anything in immigration law. We handle. I personally spend almost the vast majority of my time doing employment-based cases, ranging from labor certifications to what I usually find to be the most exciting part of my job. O1s, EB1s, national interest waivers, kind of the extraordinary ability and related kinds of petitions. So basically, people with really high levels of achievement in their specific field. So that brings us to our discussion today, which is the O1 visa, which is it's a non-immigrant visa, meaning a temporary visa, as opposed to a green card. And it's people who have extraordinary ability in their specific field. So I'll start with the basics.
It's ready to pair.
So there's a couple subcategories.
It's ready to pair.
Sorry, I don't know if that noise is disrupting.
Yeah, Ademola Bakari, can you please mute yourself? Host, can you please mute Ademola Bakari? There's a background noise from her.
Okay, just want to make sure it was making kind of an echo for me.
Yeah.
So there's the O1A, which is more for people in like the sciences or education, business, athletics, things like that. And then there's the O1B, which is for people more on the, the arts or, TV or, music kind of side of things. So just some basics about how the visa works. One, so first thing to know is it's a temporary visa. It's a 3-year visa, or you'll be come in for 3 years, you'll be admitted for 3 years, or I should say up to 3 years. You can request less time if you'd like. And it can be extended for, really as long as you need. So it can be extended in 1-year increments. So we have some clients who, are just on an O1 for really long periods of time, and that's fine. And then we have other clients who basically come in on an O1, maybe build up their credentials even higher. And if they want to stay here, maybe go for the green card petition. It's a very similar evidence, but just a higher evidentiary, threshold to meet. And are most people in here currently outside of the United States? Yeah. So if that's the case, then the way that it would work is that you would file the O1 petition with USCIS, with the Department of Homeland Security. And then once it's approved, then we would get you a visa appointment at the embassy or consulate, where you would actually get the O1 visa and then enter for that amount of time. A couple really important things to know about the O1. First, it's unlike certain kinds of petitions, you cannot petition for yourself. So you have a couple different options there. One, if you have a job offer in the United States, that company or that, employer, that organization can sponsor you directly for employment under the O1 visa. But for a lot of our clients, that's just not the case. A lot of our clients might, sometimes they're more like on the business side, and have different kind of business deals with different organizations, or certainly in the arts or actors or things like that. They're working on a lot of different projects. So then there would be the other option to work through an agent. And there's a couple of agents that we work with, and we often if you don't have one, then we often get you connected on that end. So then they can file the petition as the petitioner, because you're not able to file it directly yourself. So basically, what's the type of evidence? What do you need to prove for an O1? Basically, you're proving the criteria is a tiny bit different, whether it's the O1A, more on the business or, education or, science side versus the art side, the O1B. But basically, you're trying to prove that you have risen to the very top of your field, that you, on a national or international scale, you've risen to the very top. So types of evidence, and there's specific criteria for each category. So for example, for O1A, if you've received specific awards. So for example, I just filed a case for this, basically he's a marketing guy, and he has won all these like business marketing awards. So that's the type of evidence for that kind of category. If membership in associations, that basically you need some kind of extraordinary achievements to be admitted to be, part of that organization. If there's material that's been published about you, basically there's media articles about you or in other journals or things like that about your work or you personally. Judging the work of others in your field. So that comes into play a lot for academics or things like that. If you're like a reviewer for journals or or sometimes, for awards, things like that. Original contributions of major significance to your industry. So for example, if you, that could be all kinds of different things. Sometimes people have patents, sometimes there's just some research that you've done. Sometimes it's just something new that you've brought to your industry, even if it's not, published in that kind of academic kind of way. And that kind of thing we often prove through letters from other, experts or clients in your field. Another way to show this is showing your critical or lead capacity at an organization. So let's say you're the director or founder or whatever at an organization, at a distinguished organization, either your home country or internationally. That's good evidence of that. And there's other types of evidence like that, similar kinds of categories to show, basically that you've achieved significant success in your particular field. For people more on the art side, similar evidence, but things that are kind of more appropriate and more tailored to that area. So if you've played or will play a lead role in, performances or events, or at specific organizations, things like that. And then again, media articles about you, you know, anything with you in the news or other publications, that's always really good evidence. If you, for both of these, if you have a high salary, but usually that's a pretty high, threshold. So usually we don't use that category. But basically, these are the hopefully this gives you an idea of the types of evidence that we're looking for. Awards that you, that you've brought something new to your field, that you've been recognized in media through other experts in your field. So that's really the type of evidence that you're looking for an O1. These are the very basics. So I'm happy to keep talking or to answer any questions that are kind of more tailored to what kind of information you're specifically looking for, or that would be most helpful.
Yes, is anybody online? Is there any questions?
I see some comments in the chat. I guess while I wait, in case anybody has any questions, one thing that would be really, I should say, the very first thing when somebody contacts, oh, sure, Aziz, I think, has a question.
Yeah, we have Tunde, we have Aziz. Okay.
Aziz, please go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi.
Okay. From what I could hear, what she's saying is, in a situation whereby I don't have any recommendation from the company I work with, can I still apply for the O1 visa?
Sure. So I think it was a little bit muffled. So basically you're asking if the company you work for isn't offering to sponsor you, whether you can still apply. Is that the question?
Yeah, he said in a situation whereby he doesn't have a sponsor, or can he apply for the O1 visa?
Sure. So you can't apply for yourself. Like, you can't do a self petition, but we have, so you can go through what's called an agent. And we have a couple agents that we work with, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. So there would be different considerations of who we would want, to get you set up with. But yeah, so you could use an agent. So basically the agent, plays a role in whatever, business dealings that you're doing. So let's say you work, let's just get a little more information. Aziz, for example, what industry are you in?
I'm into a financial sector in Nigeria.
I'm sorry, I just caught the very.
He said he's into financial sector in Nigeria.
I work at a financial institution.
In the financial sector?
Yes.
Institution. Yes.
Okay. So let's say you, in one scenario, maybe you have a job offer for a bank or something like that. Even if they don't want to sponsor you, we could do like a deal memo. They're called deal memos. So basically the agent would act, as your agent on your behalf and as your representative in a deal memo. So basically it basically just summarizes whatever the deal is. So let's say you have an offer for ABC Bank to serve as, whatever the role is, director of whatever, of marketing. I'm just making something up. So if that were the case, then the agent could do a, sign on your behalf as a deal memo that would summarize what those terms would be. Okay, so here are the dates, dates of the offered employment. Here would be the salary. Here's where you'd work and what you do. So there's still a way. You technically cannot be the petitioner, but we have agents that we work with, and they're very familiar, that we work really closely with, and that are familiar with how it works, and they're good.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
A question. Yeah. Okay. I want to ask a question about this transnational career, as it cross across all other sectors, as in all other careers, not basically one career. My own career is of health, and as a maybe someone that have been registered in with the British Council. I mean, with the British Health, like NMC, National Nursing and Midwifery Council at British level. Can someone cross from there to your transnational career? Because as you people offer visa, can someone just cross maybe as a registered nurse, midwife, or specialist? Can I cross from there to your place as in as a company? Because I don't know, maybe I don't understand. I don't really understand this transnational career. Because is it that companies are under you, or you are an agent on your own? Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
Hello?
So were you asking the transnational career company how to switch over basically to them?
Yeah, I think Miss Doris, where's our host? Hello.
Yes, I'm
Hello?
sorry. I am here. Yes, I heard you. Yes. So you were asking about transnational career consultant, and you were asking if we were a company or an agent in regards to you being a nurse. Are you
Yeah.
currently based in England or in Britain right now? Are you in Nigeria, in Africa?
I'm in Nigeria. I'm in Nigeria right now.
Okay. Yes, so we
Nigeria.
do offer a service for someone like you. So we do have a couple of different ways that we could help you out. So if you're interested, please email us at that transnational career consultant about your questions, your specific question, and then we can get back to you and talk to you specifically about that. I would like to keep it this webinar on the O1 visa of what we've heard today, but we can certainly talk later. So thank you, Ma. I know that there's other questions that have come in. It looks like Itaya Suleiman.
Yeah, I
Yes.
see those.
That,
So this brings me to the next point that I was gonna raise of basically, like, let's say you're interested in, pursuing the O1, then you could reach out to, Doris or Samson, Transnational Career Center, and they could help facilitate, how we could get started on this. So
yes.
the very first thing we want to see is, I'm going to ask to see your resume. So I want to get an idea of, what's your educational and professional background. So accounting certainly is, an area that, of course, you could qualify under the O1A. So I would want to see a copy of your resume that, Doris or Samson could send along to us. Because basically I want to see, do you have those kinds of, achievements that I was just discussing? So just to give you an idea, I was just kind of mentioning some of the specific regulatory criteria. And those are specific criteria that, USCIS recognizes, awards, published material value, things like that, that are specific. They're specifically listed in the regulations. There's also like a catch-all category of other comparable evidence. But I can't remember if I've said, and I should have if I haven't, that you need to meet at least 3 of those criteria. So if the only really notable thing is you won an award but nothing else, then that's generally, that's not going to be enough. So the first thing Samson or Doris would send us your resume and we'd go from there. But yeah, we have a lot of clients who are in, business sectors like you kind of mentioned here, that, work with, clients who are, distinguished clients in your country. The other question I see here from Ola is a really good one. How long does the processing take? Okay, so this is a really, really good question. And one of the, I don't know if strategic decisions is the right word, but one of the things that, the person who is applying or who the beneficiary would be often has to decide. So you have the option to either file with regular processing, just pay the normal government filing fee, Or you can always, for an O1, you can pay the government extra to expedite the decision. So the regular, government filing fee is $460, but you can pay an extra $2,500, which I understand is a lot of money, to expedite it. And those are government fees. So, right, and these are things that are always changing. We file a lot of O1s, a lot of O1s. So we see when, there's trends. Sometimes they get longer, sometimes they get shorter. And basically there's two different USCIS, government offices that handle O1s. One on the East Coast, the Vermont Service Center, they're pretty quick right now, about, let's say, assuming no complications, generally about 3 months or so. But the California Service Center, on the other hand, on the West Coast, there's substantial delays there right now. So we're seeing generally at least 6 months if you don't, if you file regular processing. If you pay that extra government fee, then the filing fees, or I'm sorry, then the processing times are 15 calendar days. So, so it depends basically on how much money you want to spend and how much lead time you have. And you can file an O1 up to 1 year ahead of when the start date will occur. Obviously, if you have a job offer in the United States, usually, they probably want you sooner than a year. But you can always file ahead if you have that, flexibility. So basically, when somebody comes to us, one of the things that we decide, sometimes some, clients will come to us, say, like, let's say they're a singer or an actor or whatever. Oftentimes musicians will come to us and say, hey, we have a tour starting in a month, we need to be there ASAP, or something like that, or some kind of crazy timeline. And in that case, you're obviously gonna have to file, with premium processing. So if you're overseas, the first thing that you have to do is file the O1 and get the O1 petition approved. And then once it's approved, then you would get an appointment, and we can always help you get an appointment at the consulate or embassy, so you can get that O1 visa to use to travel.
Thank you, Rachel. So the next one, it says, good evening, everyone. My name is Samson. I'm currently working at Kenya, Nairobi as a content moderator. Please, is it possible for me to apply from here? I study estate management and valuation. So
I would need a lot more information, like, for example, your resume to see what, what kind of credentials you have, but certainly the, estate management and valuation, of course, that's something that would fit under the O1A. So, so this is sometimes there's positions like this where I don't know, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming there isn't like an estate management and evaluation award, for example. So this isn't really your question, but sometimes the criteria we need to get a little bit creative on how to, what criteria you might qualify under. So for example, I would want to see certainly your, CV, your resume, and want to know more about like what roles do you, like basically where do you work, where have you worked, is there something new or original that you've contributed to your industry? Have you written articles? Have there been media articles about you or the work you've done? Sometimes there won't be articles about you personally as a, estate manager or whatever, for example, but maybe about the project you've worked on, really significant projects, for example, things like that. So I would just need a lot more information, starting with your CV and more detailed information there. But yes, you could definitely apply while you're overseas. Like I said, you would file the petition first, or your petitioner would. So either your employer in the United States or the agent would file that petition. And then once approved, then you would, be able to get an appointment for the O1 visa.
Thank you, Rachel. So I will, I see two people that have their hands up. I'll go to them next. So Ola Fola, if you have a question, please go ahead. And we will get to everyone. I see that more messages are coming in. I just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to answer the questions in here.
Yeah, just a quick reminder. If anybody has asked a question in the chat and that's the same question you intend to ask, you don't have to raise your hand. So if you have used the chat tool and that's the same question you have in mind, you don't have to raise your hand. Thank you. So we can go ahead, Ola Fola.
Okay, good evening and thank you for this webinar. Good evening from Nigeria.
Good evening.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Yeah. Please, my first question is with this O1 visa, I want to know the benefit. Like, okay, if I come into the US with this O1 visa and I'm in with my spouse and kids, do they have the benefits of free education for like it is applicable for green card?
Sure.
That's my first question.
Okay, good question. I'm a mom too, so that would probably be the first thing on my mind too. So your spouse, as long as you're legally married, and if you have children who are under 21, they can also come in under the O3 visa, the dependent visa under the O1. Your spouse would not have authorization to work based on the O3. And the benefits will generally be, it depends on the local laws typically. But yeah, usually kids will enroll in, the local public schools or, whatever, depending on their age. So the green card question is a good one. So the O1 is what's called a non-immigrant visa. So that means it's a temporary visa, not a green card, doesn't lead to a green card. But often if you meet the O1 credentials, you might qualify for a similar category, a similar immigrant visa. So there's something called an EB1, which is a path to get a green card. And it's very similar criteria, but it's a higher threshold because that is for a green card. So it's similar, but just high, basically just a higher standard. So again, you need to meet at least 3 of the similar criteria, but then there's also an overall discretionary factor for the USCIS officer. So often what happens, so like, let's say a client comes, I'll start with their resume. Somebody in your situation, you're in Nigeria right now, for example, and you have spouse and a couple of kids. Presumably you'd want to come to the United States, see if you even like it here before you would, decide you want to, remain here indefinitely. So, usually somebody would come in on an O1, and then maybe after a couple of years, they'd reach out to us or to Doris or Samson and, to work with us to pursue a green card case. Say, we like it here. We really like the work we're doing. Our kids like the school, whatever. So something that often is good about the O1, if sometimes somebody will send us their resume and they want to start with a green card case right away. And it's they're tough case. I do a ton of those cases. I spend a lot of my time working on those cases, but it's certainly a high standard. So often I'll say to somebody, hey, you know what? I think the O1 is a better fit right now. I think the EB1 is kind of maybe too high of a standard right now, but you can use that O1 employment time to, build up your credentials, get more it depends on whatever industry you're in, but work on other high level projects, get other job offers, things like that will really build up those credentials. And then, you can always try for the EB1, which is basically the O1 equivalent for a green card.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. But on that note, I still want to ask that I'm actually a nurse, and what is the possibility of the O1 transitioning to, I'll be transitioning to maybe EB3 visas, like, that is what the visas the nurses use, like maybe writing my NCLEX, passing it. How long will it take, or is it possible transitioning to EB3 visa?
Yes, absolutely. So I just, this is a really good example. Okay, so I have a client who is in the exact same situation as what you're describing. So just so everybody knows what Ola's asking about is the EB3 process or PERM or labor certification. Basically, it's a way for an employer to sponsor you for a green card. And it doesn't need to be a current employer either. So I also manage our firm's labor certification or PERM, department. So I spend most of my time between basically these two types of cases. So here's an example. I have a client who's an O1. He's a fashion photographer. He's from Italy. He's done, I'm not a fashion person, but he, he's worked in New York. He's worked in New York on an O1 for many years. He previously was in Milan doing fashion stuff. Like, he's very, very high level in his industry. But probably not high enough for an EB1. Like he's been on an O1 for many years, but you know, it still is probably too much of a stretch for an EB1, which is a really, really, really high standard. So he actually got a job offer through, I forget what it is, some specific you know, company in New York. They like do the advertising for specific like luxury brands. So they decided to sponsor him for a labor certification, you know, an EB3 case. So it's kind of nice because he, you know, the O1, he's here on the O1, so he can process the EB3 from here, which is a long process. Those cases just take an incredibly long time right now. So if necessary, he'll just do one more O1 extension. So that's something you could do too. If you come and feel the EB1 would be too high, you know, maybe outside the, you know, maybe not so successful probably, then you could, if you have a job offer, you could always do a perm or a labor cert or EB3. They all mean the same thing.
Okay, thank you. One last question,
Thank you,
please.
Rachel. I'm sorry, we have a lot of people on the line, so I need to get to other people. I am reading the chats, and a lot of people are asking about how do I apply? How do I go about the process of this O1 visa? What do I need? Like Rachel said, if you send your resume and just a brief background to our transnational career email, we will be able to go through it along with Rachel and see what we can do as far as your resume and what you qualify for. So that's the first step. The first step really is that send us your resume. Please send us a little biography about you, what it is that you're looking for, what's your background. Send us your resume so that we will be able to know which path it is that you would want to follow. So I see a lot of chats about that. So that's just the overall for that one. I'm going to go to HMD Global, Nokia C31. If you have a question, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is, what we have answered one of the questions, which is the first thing to do is to send the email, the CV. So that one will now determine what level or which approach to take. Thank you very much. But the second question is that, how much are we looking at? How much are we looking at? You know, how much is your agent going to collect, or how much are you guys going to collect? So that, or if I want to fast track it, you know, how much are we really looking at, so that we get prepared by ourselves? And are you doing credential assessments like WES or something like that? Because for me, I'm a project management professional, certified with Project Management Institute, America, USA. And I believe that will also give a kind of help, you know, in my own regard. But, you know, overall, how much are we looking at?
Thank you very much. So I will give it over to Professor and Rachel to discuss that.
Are you saying how much in cost or how much evidence?
Yeah, I think on this webinar,
How much both in cost and evidence?
Yeah, we are going to focus more on the process. So if you are interested, you can send email. A contract will be sent to you. So, but we are going to remain focused on the content of this webinar. And the content of this webinar is to create awareness on the whole one possibility for professionals. So if you're interested, you can follow the contacts that have been shared with you, the email. Send your resume, and resume will be communicated to the Anthony, and thereafter a contract will be sent to you, and you will know the details.
Thanks, Samson. And just to answer the how much evidence, generally O1s are a lot of evidence. So usually O1s are huge filing. Like I have a bunch on my shelf over here, but you know, these are generally pretty big, you know, paper, you know, immigration's very, you know, it's not really in the 21st century yet, I don't think. It's all on paper, but generally they're pretty, you know, significant filings. And that's important because, you know, it's based on your extraordinary ability and achievements in your field. So it's important to document that.
Thank you, Rachel. So I have another question here. It says, good evening, everyone. Is the US 01 professional visa renewable? If yes, how many times?
Yep, so it's renewable. That's one of the really nice things about the O1. It's renewable and it's not like H1B or L1 that there's a cap. You can continue, to renew it. So the first time you get it, you can get it for up to 3 years. And then it's renewable in increments of 1 year. And just, I guess, talking about the timing, one thing, sometimes people say, well, why would I request anything less than 3 years? And sometimes we do. So for example, sometimes when we have a case that's really borderline, maybe not the strongest case, but sometimes they really just need to come in for like one tour or one set of performances, or sometimes they'll have some kind of, business thing going on for a limited amount of time. Then sometimes we will request a limited amount of time. It just kind of adds credibility to the, to the filing, I think. And it's very case specific, but usually people take advantage of the 3 years for that initial one, but it depends on the specific circumstances. But yeah, you can continue to renew it in 1 year increments.
Thank you. We got Faya Delay. Good evening. I'm in transit. I couldn't hear the conversation. Please,
I've responded to him.
Okay, thank you. The next one is Olafala to everyone. Does retrogression affect O1 visa?
Nope. So that's a good question too. Oh, Ola's read up a lot on the visa bulletin, I can tell. So no, it doesn't affect it. That only affects green card cases.
All right. I will go back to a hand that's raised right now. Olatunji, if you have a question, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Good afternoon over there and good evening in Nigeria. I'm calling from Nigeria. Are you hearing me, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, good evening.
Thank you for bringing this up, and you've attended to most of the questions I have here. But I want you to be specific on this. Are you getting the applicant a job before the payment, or how is your process like? Are you getting us job and we start the process, or is it that we start paying and you keep on pushing? I don't know. I want you to be specific, please.
Doris, Doris or Samson, maybe there'd be a question for you guys.
Yeah. It's the webinar and the issue of O1 does not come with job placement. O1 or EB2, maybe you are on NIW EB2, you are not on a job placement. However, for O1, we can work with agents to file on your behalf, but not necessarily place you on the job. So it is a transition for you to have legitimate means to process to further your career and to continue your professional exploit. So, and you can actually even get a job right before you leave the shore of the country, but nobody is placing you on any, but we can facilitate that through agency relationship, and if you have other arrangements, you're also free to exploit that. But for the petitioning, you can't self-file on O1, so it has to be through an agent. So, but we can also facilitate that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so for example, our office doesn't, can't help you find a job. I'm just an attorney, and I don't know exactly what kind of role Transnational Career Center can play on that, but so basically part of, it depends on a specific case. Sometimes people have a specific job offer. Sometimes people have like specific projects they're working on, but generally people already have those kinds of contacts or that kind of, at least before they get to us, they would have that kind of either job offer or some kind of opportunity or contacts before we get involved.
Okay, thank you. I understand that.
Thank you very much. It looks like HMD Global is still raising their hand, or is that, I believe your question's been asked.
Not anymore, not anymore. The question has been
Okay.
answered. Not anymore.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next one is from Amalade Busai. Good evening, everyone. Please, I've sent in my resume to Transnational Career, but I haven't got email as
Please, I have a
regards to
question.
this. Yes. I'm sorry, you're mute. You muted. All right.
Hello?
Yes, hello. You were on mute before. Now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Bangbe Bashiras from Nigeria. Please, I have some questions on EB2 NIW. I'm a system analyst and I have my own company, which I'm managing, and I'm a system analyst on that company. So I'm not receiving any salary from anyone. Can I still apply? That's my first question. The second question is, one of the dependents, I mean like spouse, has been banned for 5 years in Canada. Is it possible for the person to still be my dependent?
Good questions, and I think I saw a cute kid in the background earlier. So yes, so the NIW, so what she's asking about is the EB2 category national interest waivers, which is something that I actually spend a lot more time doing NIWs and EB1s than O1s. I do O1s too, but so yeah, it's okay if you have your own company, and if you don't currently have a salary, it's okay. That's not really a concern exactly. I guess it's not one of the criteria. It's not super relevant. And then so you're saying your spouse had some kind of immigration problem in Canada?
Yes, in Canada, banned for 5 years for misrepresentation.
Oh, okay. Well,
all to the agents.
Yeah, and if you wanted to talk more about it, we could talk about it, not with all these people here, but yeah, it probably shouldn't affect US immigration law if it was just in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just a follow-up to what Rachel has said, in as much as you can prove consistently your track record as a system analyst.
Yes.
Then and you must also be able to exhibit standing future to show that, oh, this is not just an ordinary, you have an advanced degree like a master's.
Yes.
You have years of practice in that same field, and you are able to establish your competency level. So all the petition. Can you please mute yourself if you root? Ruth,
yes, I've tried to mute, but it keeps getting unmuted.
There is so much background from you.
Yeah,
yes, I have masters in information technology. So I'm an Oracle certified associate. I have more than 5 years experience in system analyst. So those are the, and I believe I'm exceptional.
Yeah, and I should mention, so, and I know the NIW isn't the topic of today, but I'll mention it quickly here because it's, very related. So again, this would be a different, standard, but this is for a green card as opposed to the O1, that's a non-immigrant visa. But the nice thing about the NIW is, how I kept mentioning those regulatory criteria, awards, that you're in the media, that you have, those types of things. Those are specific, and those are for the O1, you need to meet at least 3 of those criteria or similar evidence. EB1, same thing, really similar types of evidence, and you need to meet at least 3 of them. The nice thing about the NIW is there aren't specific regulatory criteria. So we still are looking for similar types of evidence generally to show your high level of achievement, why the work is important to the United States, and that basically the national interest waivers, you're asking them to waive the labor certification. requirement. So basically your high achievement and why they should do that. So it ends up being similar types of evidence, but it isn't quite so rigid. There's a lot more flexibility there. And yeah, I've done a similar case for somebody, a woman in tech, from Nigeria, actually, under the NIW category.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel.
As I don't know, the second question I asked about the spouse that has been banned, I believe that doesn't affect the application. I mean,
Yeah,
if
that's been
A,
attended to.
B,
She
2
did mention,
NIW.
yeah, she did mention that the case, the ban was with Canada, not with US. It's a different
Okay,
entity.
okay. All right. Thank you.
We still have
Thank
so many
you.
questions. Can we start taking the chat? We have so many questions.
I don't see any other questions. It's about, people are asking about having the soft copy or having a summary of what we've discussed today in their email. Like I said, most of the other chat questions are about how do I find out about the program? What's the program like? What do I need to do? So we've already answered that please send an email to us, your resume, please send what it is that you're looking for, and we'll get back to you. Unless, Professor, there's other questions that you see.
Yeah, okay. This person, yeah, most of the chats to somebody is asking, how can you be a beneficiary? How can he or she be a beneficiary of this program? Like we did mention, just send your resume, and from there you can go for via that communication link. Somebody also asked a question. Okay, please, no one. Okay, I think we've answered this.
Okay, I do see a new one right now, Itai Suleiman. Hello, if the O1 visa sailed through, can the beneficiary come with his or her dependents?
Yes, so
Yes.
that's a good question. Oh, sail through. Yeah, so you can, your spouse, as long as you're legally married, and any children under 21 can get an O3 visa. So we would want, it would be after your O1 is approved, then we would process the O3 visa with your O1 when you do the consular processing. You could do it later too.
Hello. Please, can you place the email again for us to see, please? A lot of people are asking for the email.
Please check the chat too.
Yes, the emails
we should be able to, excuse me, let's try and be cultured, and let's try and, it's not too fair if you are not called to just interject. It's not a polite way. You have the chat too with you. You can easily scroll through. So it's not somebody's responsibility to do that for you, please.
Yes,
So,
I've just posted again our website, our contact and telephone number for that one. Rachel, I do have a question because I know that this has come up before. As far as the dependents that are under 21, is there a limit to how many can come with?
Yeah, or no, not how many. The limit is
Okay.
just the age. So often, not as much on O1s, but for other, types of cases, sometimes people will say, oh, well, my kid is, gonna age out. Once they turn 21, then they're gonna age out. Sometimes there's another way for people, to stay past that date. So a good example is, well, I mean, a lot of examples. A lot of our O1 clients, EB1s, and national interest waivers, and EB3s, like I think Ola had asked about. Basically, it more comes into play when you're at the green card stage, because they're sometimes that's one of the key considerations when you're trying to decide, hey, do I want to maybe extend my O1 or try for the green card? If your kid is getting close to aging out, getting past that 21 year age limit, then it might be time to do that unless sometimes they'll be going to university and they can switch over to F1, or sometimes they'll, there's some other specific situation. But, if you have kids who are in that older range, who are getting closer to age, aging out, then it's time to, definitely reach out to Doris and Samson to, try to be more proactive about getting started, because that would be if you want to make sure your children, stay with you, that they will age out at 21. So that's a really good question.
Yeah, Rachel, let me also follow this up with the question Doris asked. Is it possible for somebody to transit from O1 to either EB2 via NIW?
Yeah, very, that's something that happens a lot. So, and that's what I was saying, where oftentimes, well, a couple of things. One, the O1 to NIW or EB3 is sometimes a nice segue, because, so let's say like I said, the NIW doesn't have specific criteria, but again, you're showing that you have a really, that you can do your job better than, that you should skip the labor certification process because of it. So it's really similar evidence that you're going to use, and same going from O1 to EB1. So it's a good segue of, hey, USCIS, you already found that I'm extraordinary. So yes, it's a higher standard, but it's, not going from 0 to 100. Sometimes it's a good segue. And then another thing is, people often come on an O1, and even if they aren't quite at the, NIW or EB1, caliber yet, you can really take advantage of that O1 time to really build up your credentials, get more evidence. Sometimes people are so impressive, but they just don't have the, good evidence to show it. So that's where you can, build more evidence, get more, evidence to build up that case. So it's something we do all the time.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I was going to say, the question about clergy maybe would be something to contact Doris and Samson about too, because there might be there's another type of visa in R1 that we might be able to work with you guys on. We need more information though.
Yeah, for the clergy?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, and Samson would probably know a lot about that one.
Yeah.
So got the resident expert. And actually, Jeff, who's just outside of my screen here.
Yeah, Jeff is the expert on clergy matters.
Exactly. So Jeff, he just passed the bar exam yesterday. He just found out he passed the bar exam yesterday. So he's about to be our newest attorney. He was a pastor before going to law school, and now he's about to be an attorney with us. And he, he handles most of the R1s. He's an expert in all things religion.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. But yeah, you can reach out to them. And
I think maybe in the future we can focus on another webinar on clergy. Maybe Jeff can come up and we'll be able to do that. But for now, I will just focus more on the professional side of it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I think we do have a question here. I'm a pharmacist, 14 years experience, blah, 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 blah. He said, need clarification. A lot have been said, please, there's which other clarification do you need? You can send your resume to the email that has been provided. And she said she just joined. No, sorry, it's not our fault. We can't start all over again because of you. Yeah,
and I did provide, I'm sorry, sir. I did provide another chat here. A lot of people have been asking about wanting a summary recap of this webinar. A lot of people have been submitting their email, but the easiest way for us to get to everyone is please send an email to that contact at transnationalcareers.com, either in the subject line or in the email itself. Write that, please, I'm looking for a summary of the O1 visa webinar that was presented. I would like more information, and we could give you a summary, a brief background of the process, and that will be the easiest way. So please utilize our email, because we won't be able to get back to everyone that's just submitting their email for us to get back to them. So the easiest way is for you to reach out to us, and we will get back to you. we are getting to the end of our webinar. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
Is there anyone who is still?
Sorry to cut you. There's another question which I just feel we should respond to. I think about 2 people asked the question that when they submit resume, how long does it take to get back to them? Please note that if you submit resume and there is no response, you can please send a reminder. That's cautious and that's ideal, and it will be evaluated, because once you submit resume, your resume will be communicated to appropriate quarter to evaluate your potential for either this category. And if, for instance, your resume can maybe meet EB1 or EB2, the Anthony will advise you that, oh, why do you have to follow this path? Why don't you try EB1 or EB2 or others? And so the evaluation at that level usually takes maybe a few days, and there'll be communication back to you. So, but if there's no communication, feel free to send a reminder.
Yes, please. Yes, I see some of that. So I will get back to, we'll look and make sure that those that are asking about their resume will get back to you. So the next one, it says, my resume has been evaluated, but the payment plan contract is really confusing. What do I do next? Please send an email for that and say, you know, whatever is confusing, whatever you do not understand, please let us know, and we can either, you know, get online with you and talk through it, or talk through it through email. Let's see, Infinite Note says, thanks for this wonderful webinar. Please, after the submission of CV, do you assist in fine-tuning the CV if perhaps you find them inadequate for FLY for any of the immigration programs?
So one of
Yes.
the things that, and I'm sure Transnational Career on their side, maybe they do some of that too. And that's something that we would, if we wanted some edits, sometimes people will have typos, and I understand sometimes English isn't your first language and things like that. So that's something that our office, sometimes will have suggestions.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm sure that maybe they would help with the first cut, and then for lots of things on our side, if we're working on an O1 or an EB1 or NIW, there's lots of, editing.
But usually it's always with a cost. There's an associated cost to it. So because there are some resumes that are so shabby and not well prepared at all. So usually the client are being linked with those who are experts in those field, and they prepare it in line with the specification.
Thank you. The next message says, please, what's the extent of sending resume when you're not helping in getting a job? So with this one, when you send your resume could be for different visas. It could be for different green card opportunities. So it doesn't necessarily say that you need a job in order for your resume to be looked at, in order for your resume to have a quick overview. As Rachel has said, for this O1 visa, there's 2 ways. There is either as an employment sponsor or as an agent sponsor also. So as far as the job is concerned, that one is, I think, you know, that question is a little bit disingenuous, in that you can still send your resume, we can look at it. Part of it is looking at which category, which track you would fit into. And some of that track does not necessarily mean that you have to have a job here in order to you know, get a visa or to get any other immigration things. I'm trying to get through this because our time is going down. There's another one. I suppose this visa is restricted to only the activities for which the visa was issued. If yes, what are the implications? Rachel, can you help us with
Right.
that?
So, and this, I know we're at, at the time limit, and this could, we could spend a lot of time talking about it. But
Yeah.
so it depends. I mean, yes. And there's different ways of doing this. So for example, the most recent case I just filed was for a physician who has 2 different jobs with a really large university. One is teaching, her specific field of expertise, and another is the clinical, work in the hospital. So and it's 2 separate entities. So for example, in that situation where it's a specific employer who's sponsoring the O1 petition, she's going to need 2 separate petitions. And you can have O1 petitions for multiple employers. And then, when there's an agent that you use instead, we would, it's a little bit fact specific on how we would, draft it. Sometimes, I mean, if you come in as like, what did somebody say? A high level pharmacist, you can't go get a job, doing banking, for example. That has nothing to do with it. So sometimes we'll use deal memos and itineraries and things like that can cover not just employment with one position if you're using an agent, but different types of projects. Because you can't just, it's not a work visa to come just do any kind of work you want. It's related to your specific, you need to be coming in to work in that specific area of expertise. And we draft it different ways depending on, if you're going through an employer, an agent, whatever your specific circumstances are.
Thank you, Rachel. So I do apologize, our time for today is up. If you do have specific questions, burning questions that you really need, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll reach out to Rachel to craft a answer back to your specific questions. But again, I want to thank you for joining us today for the O1 visa webinar with Rachel Davis Sharp. Thank you so much. We look forward to talking with you on the next webinar. So again, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any other specific questions. We appreciate your time today. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you, everybody, for joining.